figure that out myself. Pretty interesting.
Well, you're the lawyer, thank you, yes. And,
Which means that would increase the prospect of the residents themselves voting yes or no.
Correct.
correct.
So does your motion still, sorry, I'm a processor. I just had to process that
Yes.
through. So yeah, I think I will second your motion.
All right?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
6-0.
Come on back, Rick.
Come on back. The next is 2023-6. This is Pepper Tree.
And for the record, it's Resolution 2023-109.
I'll, Pepper Tree, you said?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion.
Okay,
What's the motion
you
for?
want to make the motion?
I'll go with 1.
Okay, so that's sign and submit assessment ballots in favor of the proposed assessment.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we're going to Rolling Hills, 2023-7.
And for the record, that's Resolution 2023-110.
Yes.
Aye.
And the vice mayor will
And I have to recuse
recuse.
myself as I live in Rolling Hills.
All righty then. It's cold out there, I guess. Colleagues, any discussion on this one, on Rolling Hills? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
No, should I entertain the motion?
I'll make the motion then, I guess.
I'll-
All right, and I'll do number 1, that'd be sign and submit assessment ballots in favor of the proposed assessment.
Doug, you going to second that?
I'll second that.
You second that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. You can
6-0.
come back, Pam. 6-0 is unanimous. The next is Paradise Valley, 2023-11.
And for the record, it's Resolution 2023-111.
Any discussion on this one? Anybody want to make a motion then?
I'll make the motion that we sign, submit, and assessment ballots, resolutions directing the city to.
And I will
So
second.
number 1.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition, that was unanimous. Okay, now we're rolling into downtown. Okay, this is 2023-12.
And for the record, it's Resolution 2023-112.
This is the downtown business district.
We have 17 properties down there.
Any discussion on this one?
It's kind of nice.
No? I'll take a motion then.
Second.
All right, we got,
What's the motion for?
the motion was to sign and submit assessment, right?
As a yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry. And a vote? Yes? Everybody was
Aye.
yes? Okay, okay. That was unanimous,
6-0.
6-0. And now we're going to North Cordelia. And that's 2023-13.
For the record, it's Resolution 2023-113.
And I will make a motion to sign and submit assessment ballots in favor of the proposed assessments.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We got 2 seconds, that's a third, let's go. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. That's 7-0, unanimous. All right. Very good. Now, yes,
So
Just so that it's complete business.
Yes.
Do we officially ask to agendize the levy for downtown business district?
Not right now. We'll be doing that, yeah.
So do we ask to
well,
agendize?
So the levies will already be agendized because you've initiated the proceedings, you've already distributed the ballots, and now you've given us that direction. City attorney may step in and tell me no on this, and that's okay. But if you wanted to give us informal direction to come back with a discussion on the rate at which to levy for the downtown district, given that the max assessment is based on proposed streetscape improvements that are planned over the next couple of years, then that is direction I would be interested in taking.
It just as a caution, the council all knows this, don't meet at Dutch Brothers and talk about what you want the rate to be. You can go to him individually and express your individual opinions, but don't have a conversation amongst the majority of you to avoid the Brown Act violation.
I'm just going to make a motion to agendize it.
And I'll second that.
All right, we'll do it. I'll agendize it.
That's a request from two. That's sufficient. Thank you.
That's efficient, yes. We got it.
I think Ms. Lewis had something else to add.
Oh, that was actually my question, just for clarification. I wasn't sure if the direction was to go ahead and proceed with a 30% levy just to be able to maintain the services, or we're just going to come back for discussion? We'll bring it back
We're
for
going to
discussion.
bring it
Okay.
back. Thank you. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to public hearings. Item 12, please.
Public hearing on Resolution 2023-114 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield, authorizing the city manager to submit the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2023-2024 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and execute funding agreements for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. And our presenter is Senior Management Analyst Latanya Taronis.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the council. My name is Latanya Taronis, and today I'm asking that we hold a public hearing and to adopt a resolution for the city manager to submit the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan for fiscal year 2023-2024 to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and also allow the city manager to execute the funding agreements and all agreements that are associated with the CDBG subrecipients for the fiscal year. So the CDBG program, the goal of the program is to provide decent housing, a suitable living environment, and expanded economic opportunities. The CDBG program is funded by HUD, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The city receives an allocation on an annual basis it's a formula grant, so we never know how much we're going to get. It's just based upon HUD's annual allocations. And each year we have to submit an annual action plan that tells HUD and the public how we expect to spend the money. And it provides information about the goals and objectives for the new year. It provides a description of the available resources and proposed actions to address the identified needs. And it's required by HUD for each program year of the consolidated plan. So we submitted our consolidated plan last year for that would cover the fiscal years 2022 through 2027. So it's a 5-year plan that informs the public and HUD on what our goals and objectives are for the CDBG program over the 5-year cycle. So fiscal year 23-24 is year 2 of that plan. Each year, as we submit our annual action plan, we have a citizen participation requirement. We follow some of HUD's basic requirements, as well as our citizen participation plan, which we also submitted during fiscal year 22, the current fiscal year. And so with this being the second year of the consolidated plan, during the strategic planning process, the council approved the CDBG program would be able to accept applications for the annual action plan during years 1 and year 3. Therefore allowing, and that's year 1 and year 3 of the 5-year consolidated plan, in order to create sustainability for the subrecipients and to also streamline the application process for the city staff. And so for fiscal year 23-24, because this is our second year in the cycle, we did not accept any new applications for the annual action plan because we're piggybacking off of the applications for year 1. And so that process, we did a 2-year, 3-year funding cycle, which was approved during the current fiscal year. And so the CDBG Advisory Committee, what they did is they reviewed all of the 2022-23 subrecipients and their performance, how they performed through their funding, their timeliness, and their compliance, how compliant they were with the program, to determine whether or not they were going to be funded for the second year in the cycle. And so from that, they're able to review that information and then make funding recommendations based upon the new allocation that we will be receiving for 23-24. We also did a 30-day public notice we accepted public comments for a 30-day period, which is also required by HUD, and then of course our public hearing that we're doing today. And then the proposed projects for the 23-24 fiscal year were made available for the public to review, as well as the annual action plan were made available online, as well as for city facilities. And just a reminder, the strategic plan portion of the consolidated plan was brought forward and approved by resolution by this council on October 19th, 2021. And it was resolved that the 4 priority needs of the consolidated plan cycle would include public services, which included homelessness, youth, and special needs populations being our overarching goals. And then our non-public services would be affordable housing, public facilities and infrastructure, and economic development. We also included fair housing to further fair housing, and then the CDBG administration. The priorities and the goals set forth during the funding priorities, the priorities and the goals that were set forth during the consolidated plan is what we use to determine which projects we will fund during the 5-year cycle. So for fiscal year 23-24, HUD has let us know that we will be awarded $836,621, which is an increase from what we received in fiscal year 22-23. Of that, we are able to allocate up to 15% of that funding towards public services. 20% of that will go towards CDBG administration for us to run the program. And then the remaining portion of that, 65% or so, would go towards non-public service, which would be our public facilities or things that don't necessarily support a particular public service project. And so for fiscal year 23-24, our CDBG Advisory Committee reviewed, again, all of the applicants that received funding during fiscal year 22-23 to determine how we would fund them going forward for the next fiscal year. Our next application process for the CDBG program will start in the fall of 2023, and that will take place for funding cycles 24-25, 25-26, and 26-27. So that would cover the 3-year period. So we did the 2-year for the first part, and then it'll be a 3-year funding cycle for the next. But for this year, this coming year, fiscal year 23-24, the CDBG Advisory Committee, again, reviewed all of the applicants and subrecipients that received funding during fiscal year 22-23 and made the following recommendations based upon performance, timeliness, and compliance with the program. And then so we have housing and Economic rights, recommended funding is $5,000. Meals on Wheels, recommended funding is $50,000. Empowered Aging, $12,750. Lions Center for the Blind, $13,000. The Levin, $17,000. City of Fairfield Parks and Recreation, $22,743. The Powell Center, $5,000. City of Fairfield Public Works, Lebel Park Pathway Project, $543,804. And then CDBG Administration, $167,324. These numbers keep in mind the breakdown of the 15% for public services, 20% for CDBG administration, and the remaining for non-public service projects. Also, separate from our regular CDBG entitlement, we also have the CDBG Housing Revolving Loan Fund. And so that is a fund that years ago was created where the city had set aside some CDBG funding to support affordable housing rehabilitation. And so that is a revolving loan. So as we put money out, the money comes back and we just keep recycling it into the community. And so there's at least $350,000 in that current fund. And so the CDBG Advisory Committee, so that we can continue our housing revolving loan project rehabilitation program, to allocate $350,000 of what's in that fund towards rehabilitation for the current upcoming fiscal year. And that we're looking at, we currently have a waiting list for that project. We've been helping, we've supported multiple projects the current fiscal year, and we're looking to continue to support multiple projects going forward. And again, that supports low-income homeowners who need a rehabilitation or emergency repairs made to their home. And so once again, we are asking that you adopt the resolution authorizing the city manager to submit our annual action plan. Our action plan is due to HUD by May 15th. And so we do have to submit that on time. And we're also asking that we're allowed, the city manager is allowed to authorize, to execute all of the funding agreements related to the CDBG program. And that is my presentation. Are there any questions?
Mayor? At the advice of
Councilman
council.
Tonneson?
At the advice of council, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. I live across the street from Lebel Park.
Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
On the Lebel Park infrastructure, is that $500,000 include possible bathrooms that we've discussed? Or is that $500,000 just to redo the pathway in the park, the current?
From my is Ryan? Ryan would be able to better answer that question because they submitted the application. I don't recall. We accepted these applications a few months back for this project.
That's a lot of money for some gravel.
So to answer the question, council member, it's only included the pathway, concrete pathway to improve access for emergency vehicles and what have you. Also included as part of the project is gap closures within the sidewalk. Some of the subdivisions that were constructed south of Texas Street, they were like in the 1950s. Some of the standards have improved and changed over time. So some of the fundamental pathways aren't built. We don't have that infrastructure there. So that $500,000 it's about $250,000 for Lebel, another $250,000 for the sidewalk improvements within the subdivisions south of Texas Street.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments about this before I open up the public hearing? Would you like to hear from the public hearing first? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this item?
I don't have any public comment cards, and nor do I have anyone online, unless anybody else would like to speak on this item that are present right now. Nope.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back for discussion on this. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Few questions. The Well, first of all, I want to say, LaTanya, I believe I went to your, presentation for the community, 2 years ago for CBGB.
Yes, we do I do an annual workshop for our applications. We do an annual workshop for that.
It was wonderfully done.
Thank you.
I attend a lot of grant meetings, introductory meetings, and I thought yours, all that long ago, I thought it was one of the best I've ever attended.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My question, when I originally heard about CDBG funds, I thought there were dollars surrounding first-time homebuyers. Is that so, or am I?
It could be, but we don't necessarily have we don't use our CDBG dollars for first-time home buyers. We could create a first-time home buyers program, but because of the allocation that we receive is very minimal, $836,000 isn't a lot of money to support for first-time home buyers and to be able to support the other needs in the community as well. And so that is not necessarily a program that we are currently offering with our CDBG dollars. It is used to support the community in multiple different ways.
Okay. And then, so this group that's on this list, these were all approved for the last cycle, and this is the last cycle that they're just automatically, you've checked them for compliance, they're doing what they're supposed to do, they're reporting back, and then they're automatically brought forward for the second year.
That is correct.
So the only other question, and my eyes just keep on going to it, is the Parks and Rec City of Fairfield Youth Recreation Scholarship for $22,000. And it's not coming back to my eye just because it's not, a value, something we need. But I think it's because it's the City of Fairfield. Why are we giving ourselves money to run a scholarship program? That seems like that's something that is done really well in the community.
I only know a little bit about this because I have all of our applicants do presentations to our committee. And so, but of course, Christina's here. She could probably explain it better than I can.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes. So what we use these funds for is with our, they can use for any of our programs, whether it's swim lessons, after-school programs. And so we have had a reduction in those contributions from CDBG, and we do also reach out to Community Services Foundation and others. We pretty much have a very high demand and need for subsidizing, even though we have very low cost in most of our programming. So we allocate what we have from CDBG across the board and try to help as many families as we can.
I love that. Thank you.
I'd just like to tell you, Councilwoman Williams, I used these grants for my homeless children when we were at Heather House, and otherwise they wouldn't be able to go to swimming and that kind of stuff. So that's what I used them for. Yeah, thank you.
And if I could just, one thing, just so the CDBG program generally supports low to moderate income. Well, it has to support low to moderate income individuals and families within the community. And so we make sure that we target programs that are not only low to moderate income that support those individuals and families, but also that are centered around our goals and objectives that have been outlined in our consolidated plan. So they're very targeted towards specific categories or groups of individuals.
Any other questions or comments? I have a couple. So I know that Councilman Vaccaro brought this up last year, and I'm sorry to see that they decided again to give so much money. Not enough money to PAL, and lots of money to 11. 11 is very well funded. Millionaires poured the dough in there. We don't have millionaires pouring in the dough for PAL. And I'd like to split that in half. I'd like to see 17,000 split in half, let half of that stay there. PAL asked, I guess, only 5,000. We're trying to do better stuff over at PAL. They need more funds than 5,000.
If I can,
Yes.
just kind of talk about the PAL funding specifically and the way that they run their program. Because
Sure.
PAL doesn't own, we have to make sure that we utilize the funds for Fairfield low to moderate income youth
Yes.
specifically. PAL doesn't have very many programs, like they've had to create a program that is supported through CDBG because they don't just support Fairfield youth, they support youth from other cities as well, like Sassoon and things like that. And so it's been somewhat at times challenging for them to create a program that's able to support the demographic that we have to utilize the funding for. And so Heather and I work very closely on trying to make sure that we're following the CDBG guidelines and that they're not creating inequities within their own organization by, we're only going to give this to our Fairfield low-income people and then excluding everyone else, which can be very challenging when you have this type of program and you have large groups of children from all different areas. And so we've found something that works, not only that it works, but making sure it's not just the funding itself, we have to make sure that we're creating programs where money can be spent. Because if we don't spend the CDBG dollars within a certain amount of time, then we lose the funding and we get sanctioned. And so as we're making the funding recommendations, we're very careful. We look at history over years of time, how much money has been spent, what the compliance has been throughout the years. And so we make sure that we're able to allocate funding according to those types of projects.
All right, can I talk to the chief here for a sec? Sure. Thanks.
Yes, Mayor.
So I know, Chief, that you don't do the program, and Heather does, right? So you don't
Correct.
work at all about this, and do most of the people that the PAL serves, are they mostly lower income?
No, almost all of them are, but I think the issue here is that we are open to all Fairfield Sassoon Unified School District students.
Right.
We don't discriminate Fairfield or Sassoon
And that's a
on that.
problem.
And so that does become a challenge when we have to try to divide that portion up, because we do have a mix. Kids go to Fairfield High, Armio, Grange, they're from both cities, and even probably on occasion, some from Vacaville, from Vanden High School as well, so.
Yeah,
So we do have a large variety, but we serve our students, and those schools all are in Fairfield, and so that's why it's specific that way.
Do you know, maybe, I don't know if maybe LaTanya knows, does Susan City have CDBG money that they don't? All right, so, because this is interesting, Mr. City Attorney, I want to ask you a question. I'm not letting go of this easy, sorry. My question is, whenever we say that we're only going to allow, like, let's say Fairfield people to move into our low-income housing, we're always told that you can't do that, that it has to be whoever comes through. Why is this different?
So I'm actually going to defer back to Ms. Toronis and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
As you know from the history of CDBG in the city, there was a time before these fine people came.
Yes.
That the CDBG program in Fairfield was audited and found to be out of compliance. Ms. Toronis is an expert. I've worked with her in the lead up to this. That's actually a misnomer. She kind of helped me understand the legality, so I'm going to defer to her.
Okay.
But I will just say, just in general, this is federal funds. So the federal government gets to define how the funds are used. They've identified, and she can correct me if I say anything wrong, targeted areas within a city and gives money specific to those cities to be used in those areas for programs in those areas. And I think I'm simplifying it a lot.
Yes, no, I mean, you're absolutely correct. The funds have to be used to support City of Fairfield only.
Period.
And their community, that is
Okay.
it. And so we do lots of compliance monitoring to ensure that every person who is receiving our dollars is able to support Fairfield only. And when they can't, unfortunately, we're unable to, assist them with our funding.
Right.
And so that it is a HUD regulation, and when we submit things like our consolidated plan, our annual action plan, and our CAPER, HUD is specifically asking us, how many residents did you serve? Where did they live? What populations?
Right.
The reporting for this program is very specific to ensure that the funds are being utilized correctly, and again, not just correctly, timely. As well. So as a matter of fact, May 2nd, today was our timeliness test. So HUD expects us to spend the money. So we want to make sure we're working with programs that are going to spend the money.
Okay, now I know that Levin is having a problem with the Dana Drive property because it's being sold. How many sites are there for Levin in Fairfield now?
That information I don't specifically know. However, Mark Lillis is in the back. He would be able to answer that question for you.
You want to tell me, Mark? So how's it going over on Dana? Did that not work out?
Yeah, so Dana Drive, interesting scenario. I think I may have told you all about it. So North Bay, experiencing some financial difficulties, we all
Yes.
know. Had to sell that property. Got a call from Kennard himself saying, hey, you know what, I can save 8 healthcare workers if I sell this property. And we said, you know what, Kennard, do what you need to do because we need more health workers. We will figure out the aftermath. So Supervisor Mashburn was working with the county to see if there was a possibility to save that property and perhaps purchase it. And because he rightfully claimed, hey, we have a lot of residents as well as a lot of customers that are constituents that are down that drive. So that didn't work out. I know at one time council was thinking about perhaps purchasing it. That didn't necessarily work out with ARPA funds. So where we ended up going is that it did end up getting purchased by the McGuire Group, and we are paying $2,500 in rent each month in order to keep that program, which I will tell you we'll happily do. We will happily do. Dana Drive, I don't have to tell you the history. Chief Marshall can tell you, was a mess. There were shootings, there were stabbings. It was so bad when we first got there, they had a community project where they closed down the whole street. There were North Bay physicians in the ER that were scared because there was so much violence that is happening on that block.
I used to live there, yeah.
Yeah. You're aware. So
Yes.
when we first came there and Gary Basalma invited us there, I was shocked with how much violence was going on in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think that according to Chief Cantrell, when she was here, she said that violent crime had decreased by over 50%. Primarily because of just all the enforcement efforts and also the good partnership that's been happening on that drive. It's a real success story. So we're glad to be able to serve there. It's unfortunate that it's our only property. Actually, I take that back. It's the second property that we have to pay rent. We pay one for in the city of Vacaville, but we do pay rent for that facility.
And what other facilities do you have in Fairfield?
So we have the Grove, it's 855 East Tabor, which is the first one we started.
Yes.
We also have Grande Circle.
Right.
We also have Parkway Gardens. Excuse me, not Parkway Gardens. We have, because Parkway Gardens has a little bit of some issues there.
Yeah, that's
but-
too bad, because
yeah.
that was nice.
It was nice. It was, yeah. We'll tell you more about that. But Phoenix Drive and then Signature, which is on Tabor. So those are the
Yeah,
facilities that we
right.
have.
All right.
And we're working on a new initiative to try to get a mobile unit that you might have heard.
Yes.
That we can actually go and deploy out into some communities where we don't have a center, because it's hard to get brick and mortar in some places, that's for
Yeah.
sure. As we saw on Dana,
Yes.
we were panicky that we wouldn't be able to serve those children who need it after COVID. I'm telling you, the gap was large, but it is tremendous these days. So our kids need as much help as they can get. Hope
All
that
right.
answered your question. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I
Yes.
comment, please? Yeah, in the past, I have had issues with, the way the funds have been distributed. One thing I've come to understand, and thank the staff here, is that we always don't get the applications that we look for, right? I mean, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's why originally I had no comments, because I understand that just from talking to you and Latan also. Yeah, I did in the past have, and I still wonder sometimes about how it's distributed, but I also understand we don't get the applications, as many applications as we probably should get. And that should be, outreach, and I know you've talked about how much outreach you guys do, and I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying that I would like to see more applications out there. I think it would be really necessary, so we can look at how we distribute everything, so.
Yes. And to your point, so our plan for this summer, early fall, before we open our CDBG application period, again, because we're going to be looking at funding programs for a 3-year cycle this fall, or starting for the next fiscal year after, we plan to open a number of workshops. And so what we can do is start working with some of the nonprofit organizations to gear them up for our application process, not just for them to apply, but let them know what it takes. Make sure that they are creating programming that can be supported by the program. Because oftentimes what happens is some of the nonprofits, they don't have programming that we can support because they're not serving our residents, or they're not serving low income, or they don't do the legwork that it takes for the reporting that we need. And so we're gonna start working with them early in the summer to prepare them for the application period that will come out late fall, early winter.
Yeah, because I still do work in the schools, and I know I've been approached by a couple of, organizations that could really help. I mean, these funds could really help them, but they do lack the structure, and I think that is the problem. I mean, I've had, one group in particular, I won't say who they are, but, do a presentation for me, and I thought about these type of funds, but they're very loosely structured.
Yeah.
So, and I understand you guys, it needs to be,
Yes, yes.
So.
And that is the challenge that we see, right? Like, they have to have all the financial components in place, all of the reporting requirements, and, it's very specific for what we need. So hopefully, with us doing a number of workshops, we'll be able to kind of close the gaps where it's needed.
Anything else? All right, then. Oh, yes, Councilwoman.
Just talking about those workshops and just educating the public, is that something that's just good? Because I'm thinking of something for us to be able to understand what the parameters are, so that if we are out in the community and we do run into a nonprofit that might qualify, it'd be good for us to know too.
Yeah.
I guess maybe in general what the parameters are, so we can be like, hey, have you thought about,
Yes.
that way we're not just out there telling maybe someone that doesn't qualify, but if we have an understanding around what it is that they need to be doing or have, it'd be great for us to, be advocating as well for applicants.
Absolutely. I mean, like last year when I opened our application period, we have 56 people that came to the workshop, but we still only got 14 applications, and so it could just be a little intimidating. So we've got to figure out where the gaps are and close those gaps as we go along.
So I will tell you that the process is intimidating. I applied maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I don't remember the number, but it was just intimidating. It was confusing. The requirements, I don't know, you just was able to break it down in a very bite-sized way. And I think what happened from that 50, because I was part of the 50 that were in the room, you were able to kind of know that you don't fit those requirements. So I think you did that really, really well.
Thank you.
So I do think this is the team that can increase outreach, and I love their idea of workshops. And I love that one-sheeter where we're all promoting it. We all kind of know what those variables are. And if there's anybody that could do a one-sheeter to kind of break this down simply, I know it's you.
Yes, and I probably already have one. And then just another, to your point, just for knowledge reasons. So because we get such a small amount of CDBG funds, the amount that we can offer to public service, so We only have $125,000 out of the whole 800 and some odd thousand that we have that we can actually offer to public services. And so most applicants are only gonna get between 10 and 15,000. And to most of them, it's not worth going through the process. And that is, unfortunately, those are numbers that we have no control over. We can't change the ratios because those are regulated by the federal government. And so sometimes those are the things that we're running into as well. Because some people have, big projects they want to bring forward, but if it's a public service, we're unfortunately able to give the larger amounts that they need. And so sometimes we've had applicants drop off because I want 100,000. Well, that's all I got, and I got to spread that over, 15 people. And so we've seen that come across as well.
Thank you. Thank you for all of your work on this and straightening this up with CDBG. I know a little bit about it because I applied for them here over the years. So, okay, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion then to approve, or not to approve, whatever you want to do.
So approved. So moved.
So moved to approve. In a second, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
Thank
That was
you.
unanimous, 6-0. Thank you. And that winds it up for us. Thank you all. You are the team that gets it done, even if sometimes I can't speak or hear. You guys are really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.